Terima kasih. Okay, a warm welcome to all of you. We hope you enjoyed all of the session of Bali. I hope you enjoyed the opening ceremony yesterday. I think it's very, very good. So, I will make it my opening speech very brief. And now, I think before we begin, let me explain briefly about the flow of this session. Every speaker has 30 minutes. Every session speaker, not one speaker, because you bring 3%. Okay. And after all the presenters, we'll have Q&A session and discussion session. So I would like to invite our group of speakers. Mr. Hans Panberg, do I spell your name correctly? Okay, thank you. Vivian the Vogel and Roland Wetzel. The floor is yours.
Thank you, and good afternoon. It's always a challenge to get a crowd out after lunch, but I'm happy that you are joining us for this session. I'm not going to take much of the time because we have two fabulous speakers with us who will delve deeper into the subject. I am Hans van den Berg. I'm from the Center for International Legal Cooperation in the Netherlands. We do projects on behalf of the Dutch government and the European Union to strengthen the rule of law. And over the past years, we have been working with the Dutch Probation Service to support the development of the Ukrainian Probation Service. In that context, the Dutch government wanted to support Ukraine even more during the Russian war. And over the past years, we worked on strengthening the Ukrainian Probation Service. And one important question came forward during those sessions, and that was related to how to work with veterans, specifically within the probation service. Well, that question might not have been a completely new question, because every country will have military veterans who have fought or worked for the country and to defend the country. Ukraine finds itself in a very unique position, meaning that it's a country that is still at war, while at the same time having people who come from the front lines who might unfortunately end up in the criminal justice chain. And that means that a specific approach is needed in relation to these veterans and how they are being dealt with by the probation service. As we say, a more trauma-informed approach. So from our position, we have been working with the Ukrainian probation service and in Ukraine over the past 30 years. We've been supporting the development of the Ukrainian probation service, specifically also in the past years focusing on punitive sanctions. And we have been supporting, looking into how to support veterans within the justice chain as victims, witnesses, also as perpetrators. And finally, what we are doing now, and that's what we are presenting on, is working on research to look at how can we best work with veterans within the probation service. And we have joined between the Netherlands and Ukraine our strengths to bring together research, information, translate it into working methods, manuals, protocols, procedures, so that probation officers are well equipped and have the tools to work with this new type of group within the probation service. So I would like to hand over the floor to our first speaker, Evy, who will talk about research.
Hey, thank you, Hans. Yes, my name is Evy Amir Syamsudin. I'm from the Netherlands, and I work at the University of Applied Sciences and also at a forensic mental health setting in the Netherlands. And I've become part of this project last year, and I'm really, really happy to be part of this project because I think it's very, very relevant. I also feel a bit humble because I'm working in the Netherlands in a safe situation, and we are working for the people over there who are still in a very complex situation. Still, we are trying to do everything we can to deliver something that can be useful. So I want to just briefly share some lessons with you, and if people are interested, they can also contact us afterwards, because we also know it's going to share a lot of interesting also things to share. So this is the group I'm working with at the University of Applied Sciences. If people are interested, we just published a book. There are some flyers with discount information. And we have become involved in the project because of our experience in working with justice-involved clients, probation clients, but also other justice-involved people. And we have experiences in studies with, for instance, working alliance, recovery-oriented work, trauma-informed approaches, and mental resilience of professionals. So the main questions for the research project, the first one is how can we help the justice-involved veterans in Ukraine to help them support, recover, and reintegrate back into society? That's the first one. But we also think it's very important to also pay attention to the professionals who are working with these veterans, because they can be having a very hard time with that, because they are also in this war situation and they are confronted with all these stories, etc. So we also want to help them to be most optimally fit to do this relevant job. This is briefly the overview of the research. We are still in the beginning of it, so we started with a literature review. Our esteemed colleague from Ukraine, Mr. Valentin Kim, has already done a survey with clients, veterans, and we are also going to do a survey with professionals, and afterwards we have some other steps. We don't have time to go into detail. What we aim to deliver at the end is some real practical tools. So we aim to develop a risk screener to prioritize cases, because you can imagine there are many veterans who have come into contact with justice and they need to be helped, but who has the highest priority. We also want to develop guidelines for trauma-sensitive working and trauma-sensitive communication, a manual for working with justice-involved veterans, and also some fact sheets that can be used in daily practice. So that is the overall aim of the project, to deliver in practical tools. So briefly, a little bit about what we learned so far from the literature, and I have to say the literature is mostly from North America. So it cannot be translated to Ukraine because it's a unique situation, so we have to adapt that. But we, of course, can learn from previous studies in other countries that have been in war. So when we look at risk factors, why the veterans start committing offenses or repeat offenses, we know we have to look into the general risk factors that are valid for all types of clients, like mental health issues, substance abuse, first childhood experiences, etc., etc. But we also have to look at specific risk factors that are related to the military experiences, like the combat exposure, moral injury, being witness, or being having done some things that go against your own moral fundamentals. But also it can be really difficult to have the transition into civil life. And especially in Ukraine, where the war is still ongoing, can be extremely tough. So far, what we have found in the literature with respect to the risk factors, if we want to have a screener, that we can prioritize cases, we see most important factors are related to mental health issues, like trauma, the substance abuse, post-traumatic stress disorder, but also traumatic brain injury is also an important risk factor. And the second set has to do with what I just told you, the difficulties with transition to civil life, like unemployment, problems with housing, but also the loss of military identity. So you are going from the military situation to back to usual life, which is not usual. Lack of social support, etc. It's really, really important to not only focus on the risk factors, but also pay attention to the protective factors. So what can help these veterans recover and reintegrate again? For instance, social support is really important. Social support from their families or friends, but also from peers, from other veterans. Of Of course, mental health support, work, life goals, the coping skills, so there are a lot of protective factors that we know from the literature that can be useful. What do we know about support strategies for veterans from the literature? Again, from the literature, mostly North American. We know, again, trauma-informed approaches are very, very important. So we have to recognize, realize that these people have had traumatic experiences that we need to take into account. We also know that the combination of mental health support, but also practical support, for instance, with the housing, combination is helpful. In general, treatment should be integrated, multifaceted, and also it's important that it's well implemented. So you can have a beautiful treatment program, but if it's not implemented well, you have nothing. Good collaboration between all the different partners working in the justice chain is important. And it's also important to involve social networks, families who are also struggling, and again, peers. A little bit more, if I still have time, about trauma-informed working. Maybe you are familiar with this model. It's an important model. It's about safety, about choice, trustworthiness, collaboration. Those are the important aspects. And trauma-informed care is different from trauma treatment. It's more about the whole environment that you realize the impact of trauma, recognize signs, and respond to that. And if you try to make it a little bit more specific, for instance, safety means that the environment should be predictable, there should be no surprises, there should be clear and consistent communication to the veteran. Also give this person as much as choice and autonomy. Work with them, not work on them, so sit together and talk about what are the most important goals, what are the first steps that we can take, so make it really specific and joint collaboration. Respect military identity and avoid re-traumatization. So these are some basic aspects. Very briefly, again, also important to look at the mental resilience of the professionals working with clients. This is more in general an important topic, but especially with the veterans in Ukraine, we need to take care of the professionals as well. And what do we know about that? We know that there are a lot of factors contributing to mental resilience, both from the individual, of course, also from the organization. Maybe even the organization is more important, but it's always in combination. So these are some risk factors from the literature that we know. So it also has to do with personal circumstances, personal attitudes, but also with high workloads or lack of autonomy, lack of responsibility when there has something happened. So there is a combination of individual and organization factors. And again, here we also look at protective factors. So if the professional is optimistic, is able to empathize with the clients, but not take it home with them personally, so for a form of detached coping, that is really helpful. And of course, for the organization, an open and transparent culture is important, sincere commitment, clear communication, those are important factors. So, I'm almost through my time. This is the summary of the lessons that we have learned so far. And again, we are still at the beginning of the process, so we hope to learn a lot more and also to adapt it to the specific Ukraine situation that they are dealing with and to help them respond to that as good as possible. If you want to have more information, I'm going to skip these ones. These are some extra slides. Feel free to contact us. And then now I give the floor back to Bob.
For a brief moment, we have a small short video on the Ukrainian probation system to further inform you about how it works and some information about it.
While the war and difficult economic situation in the country, the penitentiary system of Ukraine continues to fulfill its assigned tasks. The structure of the State Criminal Executive Service of Ukraine includes 81 penal institutions, 5 prisoner programs, 99 healthcare facilities, and 543 probation officers. In total, the actual number of personnel in the system is almost 18,000 people. The key challenges at the current moment are the outdated legislative framework and infrastructure, as well as chronic underfunding. In particular, the personnel's monetary support is the lowest in the relevant segment of the labor market. An important security challenge is the insufficient compliance of the infrastructure with wartime threats, as well as numerous corruption signs. A set of measures is currently being taken in order to update the legislative framework, in particular in the context of humanizing execution of criminal punishment. The draft laws on the penitentiary system and on the disciplinary statute of the penitentiary system have already been developed. New places of detention are created. A new pretrial detention center in Matusivka for 1,072 places is in the process of building. Kyiv pretrial detention center will be completely renovated. The main achievement of the last financial year was the regulatory and actual provision of additional payments for the personnel started from September 2025 during the martial law state, as well as an increase in targeted subvention. However, the amount of the state budget expenditures for the State Criminal Executive Service of Ukraine provided only 43 of its needs last year. In 2026, such expenditures were increased by 2.9 billion hryvnia. Preparations for possible winter blackouts are already underway. These measures include help from the international partners. Recently, a priority area of the development is creation of a multi-mode center for the rehabilitation of prisoners who served in the military and took part in hostilities. It will benefit in building a post-war, conflict-free society. In order to ensure the safety of the personnel and minimize corruption, the internal security units are created in the State Criminal Executive Service of Ukraine. The direction of international cooperation is also being strengthened in terms of personnel involvement, identifying key needs of the service and attracting assistance. In the context of humanizing the system and preventing tortures, the introduction of 85 positions of inspectors for observing the rights of prisoners and persons taken into custody is rather significant. Modernization of a new type of punishment, namely probation supervision, is also underway. An important element of this process is the purchase of electronic control tools and an appropriate information and communication system.
We can start. Hello, everybody. Nice to see you here. It's okay. Yeah. My name is Roman Bachkala. I represent NGO volunteer organization from Ukraine. We are working together with criminal justice system in Ukraine, try to help this system to create special programs to work with the veterans of our Russian-Ukrainian borders. And I'm glad to see here our delegations, official authorities, members of the criminal justice system. It was not so easy to come here because of war in Ukraine. By the way, today night it was very difficult in Kyiv, in Odessa, in other cities of Ukraine. Many people died again this night, and unfortunately, Russian aggression is still going on. But anyway, we should live, we should become better, we should have reform, and our enemies, unfortunately, only wait when we will do nothing. But we can't stop, and we should go. Thank you for our Indonesian partners, thank you for our Netherlands partners for all your help, your support that you extend to Ukraine, that you help us to become better. So this is my colleagues, volunteer team. Dear colleagues and partners, Ukraine is currently facing the latest of a full-scale war caused by the Russian Federation aggression. This does not only affect the security environment, it is also reshaping how public institutions operate, including the criminal justice system. We are now dealing with an unprecedented challenge, the large-scale return of veterans from intense, high-impact war to civilian life. Naturally, some of them come into contact with the justice system. At the same time, it is important to stress that most of these individuals remain in the community. As of early 2026, over 1,400 war veterans are under probation supervision, out of approximately 600 people, all in the probation system overall. In addition, more than 4,600 probation clients have served in the military through mobilization, which means this number will continue to grow. Importantly, around 66% of veterans who have committed offenses are supervised within probation rather than being isolated from society. This places probation at the center of the reintegration process. In many ways, probation is already addressing the consequences of war on the front line within civilian communities. However, the system will largely rely on tools designed for peacetime. This is why the challenge is not about improving individual mechanisms, but about rethinking the overall approach. We are developing a veterans policy within probation based on several core principles. A systematic approach instead of isolated solutions. Probation cards, social services, and healthcare need to work within a shared reintegration framework. A human-centered respect. Veterans should not be viewed primarily as a risk, but as individuals dealing with complex psychological consequences of war. Control without support does not reduce risk, it often increases them. Linking social and criminal justice responses. Offending behavior among veterans is not purely a legal issue, it reflects broader social and psychological challenges. Early reintegration. Risks need to be addressed before they result in offending, not after. Health as a critical factor. Psychological and cognitive conditions often determine whether a veteran can successfully reintegrate. Working with the social environment, families, communities, and veteran networks play a key role in reintegration and must be part of the process. Shifting the narrative, the last. Veterans are not a threat, they are resources. Outcomes depend on how effectively the system engages with this potential. Next, these principles are grounded in practice and evidence. For the first time in Ukraine, we have developed a social legal profile of veterans under probation based on research involving around 500 individuals. The findings show that the main risks are not linked to criminal intent, but to factors such as health issues, unstable employment, psychological stress, and limited access to support. This confirms a key point. Effective probation is about balancing supervision with support. 5. Elements of this approach are already being implemented. These include individual risks and needs, assessment, stronger integrity, cooperation, and partnership that ensure International cooperation is also an important part of this work. Engagement with partners such as the Netherlands Probation Service and the Center of International Legal Cooperation, CILC, thanks again, has reinforced the value of reintegration-focused approaches and reducing reoffending. At the same time, we are fully aware that these efforts need to be scaled much faster. And then again, in the final of my presentation, let me say that we remain open to cooperation, both in learning from international experience and in sharing our own, which is being shaped in the context of full-scale war. The high level of the support and expertise of our international partners in advancing these changes. Thanks again. Thank you for your time, for your attention. And let me say, glory to Ukraine, glory to our heroes. Slava Ukraine!
We have one more short slide. If you could click to the next one, Mr. Kim, thank you. So, as said, we are working with our Ukrainian partners at looking how we can best support the system and how to best support also veterans and professionals working with veterans. What we aim to do with the research, but also in very practical elements, is that we are going to translate this into not just for the probation system, but in the wider justice chain. So also for the judiciary, also for the prosecution, and also for the police. And a trauma-informed approach, so that every step of the way within the justice chain, veterans are dealt with in a proper and in a human approach. This means that we are looking at protocols and guidelines for working with veterans, including an overview of organizations which can support the integration and socializations, enabling not just probation workers, but also judges and prosecutors to be informed about what kind of organizations are out there to support veterans within their process. Also looking at specifically training for psychologists and professionals working with veterans in the justice chain. In collaboration, we do this with UNODC and with Finnish partners. And here we look at training the trainer formats so that in the long run, Ukraine itself has the ability to train its professionals in working with veterans. In line with that, we're also looking at risk assessment, specifically in relation to veterans, to make sure that when a risk assessment is made, that the professionals working with them make a proper assessment and advise the prosecution and judiciary if further psychological assessment is necessary, or what kind of impact this has on the veteran and the process itself. Overall, with all these tools, we hope that we can strengthen the Ukrainian probation system, but also in general the justice system, because over the next few years, as Roman said, we will only see an increase of veterans entering the justice system, whether they are witnesses or victims, but also probably, unfortunately, as perpetrators. So it is important to have a trauma-informed approach across the whole justice chain. And we are doing this with our support from the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and we are very happy that we are able to implement this project together with our Ukrainian partners. Thank you very much, and please let us know if there are any questions, but also if you would like to collaborate, if you have information to share, if you in your work environment work with veterans and can share information, best practices or lessons learned with us, we are very open to that because we would like to take that along in our research and of course share any results also with you. Because we hope that from this unfortunate situation, others can learn as well how they have to deal with a specific group within the justice chain. Thank you.
Thank you so much, that was the last presentation. So it's really new to focus on the veteran about our probation system. Thank you so much, Evy and Robert. So now we will move to the next speaker, the founder of Second Chance Foundation, Madam Evy Amir Syamsudin. The stage is
Good afternoon, my distinguished colleagues, partners, and friends. It is truly an honor to stand before you today at the 7th World Congress of Probation and Parole. On behalf of Chapter 10's Foundation, I'm grateful for this opportunity to share with you our perspective consistent with the Congress team, getting smart in justice, healing hearts, and safer societies. Let me begin by acknowledging the presence of our distinguished Indonesian friends, as well as our colleagues, partners, and friends from around the world. I especially extend congratulations to Indonesia and the Directorate General of Corrections for hosting this conference. Indonesia's continuous effort to balance rehabilitation with accountability is to be acknowledged and commended. Today, I would like to share a perspective on how we can move towards a more connected, effective, and human correctional system. One does not end at integration, but continues as a pathway towards reintegration in safer society. Before we talk about rehabilitation and reintegration, we must begin with a more fundamental question. How does someone enter a correctional system in the first place? Every individual enters through a legal process, and the equality of the process matters deeply. Justice must be granted in three essential principles. One is fairness, where legal process must be unbiased and consistent, ensuring legal certainty for all. Secondly is equality. All individuals must be treated equally before the law, regardless of their background and social status. And third, access. Individuals should be able to understand the law and have meaningful access to legal institutions, including courts and tribunals, as well as adequate legal assistance to uphold their rights. These principles create whether individuals trust the system, whether communities feel protected, and whether justice is received as fair. When systems are grounded in fairness and humanity, they do not only respond to crime, they help prevent it. And this is important because what happened at the beginning of the system shapes everything that follows. Justice is shaped long before incorporation, starting at the moment of request. The first interaction with the system forms trust, legitimacy, and outcomes. When this process is fair, transparent, and accountable, it builds confidence. But when it is not, the consequences can be significant. Wrongful incorporations, increased pressure on the integration system, and overcrowding. Globally, we can highlight this example, although they are not exhaustive. First, the UK emphasized procedural safeguards to ensure transparency and protect suspect rights. Second, Norway embeds dignity in enforcement, reflecting a broader rehabilitative philosophy that aligns with their human correctional system. Zealand integrates community-based policing to build trust by ensuring culturally sensitive approach. So, we must ask, if the beginning is unfair, how can the outcome be just? This is why justice must be understood as a continuum, not a single moment. Let us now look at the current reality that unfortunately is common in too many countries around the world, in Indonesia as well. Correctional facilities are currently operating at approximately 186% of capacity. In this context, this level of overcrowding creates systemic pressure. An overcrowded correction system faces several challenges, including disease transmissions, unsafe conditions for both inmates and staff, reduced access to rehabilitation due to limited space for programs. These conditions contribute to recidivism, strained resources, and violent basic human needs. As a result, many individuals may complete their sentence, yet still live without the necessary skills, access to economic opportunities, or the social support needed to reintegrate effectively. We are encouraged to Indonesia by Indonesia efforts to address these challenges and with its focus on restorative justice. This brings us to a critical point. Reintegration is not automatic. It must be intentionally enabled. And this is where the focus needs to be shifted, not only managing reintegration, but on preparing individuals for what comes after, ensuring that the transition back into society is supported, structured, and sustainable. When the individual leaves correctional facilities, the transition into community supervision in Indonesia, we can see that the numbers of individuals under probation and parole has been steadily increasing over the past 2 years, from around 122,000 in 2024 to more than 135,000 so far in 2026. This reflects both progress towards community-based supervision and a growing demand for effective reintegration systems. As systems evolve, key areas remain to be strengthened: more individual support, stronger links to real economic opportunity, better cross-sector coordination, and continuity before and after release. Some priority actions are needed and include expanding capacity for individual supervision, strengthening the capacity of probation and parole officers, ensuring continuity of skills and post-release support, and developing pathways to employment for those under supervision. Without adequate support, the potential of community supervision to support meaningful reintegration may not be realized. Reintegration does not end at release. In many ways, that is where the real work begins. Second Chance Foundation partnership with the Directorate General of Corrections reflect this shared commitment to reintegration through our various programs. Let me highlight a few areas of partnership where our collaboration with DGC has had very good outcomes. Together, we are building systems that are not only smarter and more compassionate, but truly work for everyone: officers, roles, and progressively. In 2020, our partnership established innovative production and training center construction for for women's at Semarang Correctional Facility. We also produce Second 10 Stars, a competition for singing, dancing, and stand-up comedy, similar to American Got Talent that some of you may be familiar with. Participants represent correctional facilities from across Indonesia. Together with UGC, we also contribute to the Pope Apostolic Journey in Indonesia back in 2024. Recently, we collaborate with Rafael Rowe Foundation on a welding training and bunk bed construction program. Not only does this program improve the living condition for prisoners, but it is also provided with remarkable skills in welding and metal construction. Since our establishment, we have reached 167 correctional facilities and engaged more than 3,900 individuals through 97 programs. These numbers are important, but what we have learned is this scaling access alone is not enough. Why truly determines good outcomes is relevant and continuity. Without this, impacts remain limited. Behind every number is a person. For example, Daddy, who discovered photography during integration and today work professionally in the field. Or Kasih, who started with batik training and now runs her own business while also teaching others. These stories are not exceptions. They illustrate something important. Reintegration is not theoretical, it is life. What changes is not only skills, but also identity and the ability to participate economically and socially and live in dignity following integration. From these examples, we have learned that reintegration requires three key elements. First, alignment with labor market realities. Skill must be relevant beyond the correctional environment. Second, cross-sector collaboration. Reintegration cannot be handled by one institution alone. And third, individuals' readiness, confidence, build agency capacity, and mindset are equally important as the technical skill they gain. Because ultimately, reintegration is not a moment, it is a system. This brings us to a broader perspective. When we talk about getting smart on justice, we mean moving forward outdated punitive models. We must embrace evidence, data, compassion, and human dignity. This means tailoring intervention through risk need responsibility models, expanding alternatives to incarceration, such as probation and parole, and using technology wisely, not as a barrier, but as a bridge to reintegration. Importantly, meaningful investment from government and the private sectors to support rehabilitation and reintegration. Building on this idea of getting smart on justice, we must also recognize that smart justice cannot stand alone without smart and aligned policy. Because even the most well-designed rehabilitation program will struggle to succeed if they are not supported by a broader system that is consistent, fair, and grounded in human rights. Rehabilitation efforts are most effective when they are supported by regulation that upholds human rights, equal legal standing for all individuals, and clear, consistent legal frameworks. Individuals in correctional system are no longer seen only as a subject of punishment, but as an individual with the potential to contribute when they return to the society. And the system itself begins to shift from being a burden to becoming an opportunity. Expanding on the example we referenced earlier, we can see how this alignment strengthens outcomes. In Norway, for example, the system emphasized restorative justice and normalization, ensuring that life inside reflects life outside as much as possible. In Singapore, the Yellow Ribbon programs create structured pathway from incorporation, employment, and social reintegration. And across several European countries, policies such as grace periods and bracket-sensitive employment help reduce long-term stigma and improve access to work. In this context, Indonesia is also in a strong and strategic position as a country that plays an active role in global human rights discussion. There is an opportunity for Indonesia to promote strengthening of the alignment between justice, humanity, and rehabilitation, not only to improve domestic outcomes, but also to contribute to shaping global correctional practices. Because when the policy, human rights, and rehabilitation are aligned, we do not only improve system, but we improve lives. And this alignment is what allows justice to move from a concept of control to a system that truly enables transformation. Smart justice requires smart policy. Government must invest in research and evaluation to understand what truly works. Probation and parole officers need training in motivational interviewing, trauma-informed care, and cultural competence. And we must build partnership with the private sector and community groups to provide housing, employment, and education. Justice is not only accountability, it is also about opportunity. Friends, yes, we must hold offenders accountable when they break laws, but at the same time, we have to provide opportunities for their rehabilitation and reintegration. Following the importance of smart policy, the next question is how do we operationalize this in practice? Because policy alone is not enough. It must be translated into system, standards, and day-to-day implementation. First, through training and standards, capacity need to be strengthened with practical, scenario-based approaches, such as Norway's model of the escalation, dialogue, and respect for human rights. Second, documentation and monitoring, standardized records of legal grounds and evidence ensure consistency and accountability. While digital tools such as body worn camera and logs enhance transparency and trust. Third, oversight and complaints mechanism. Independent review structures are essential to ensure accountability and maintain public confidence. Fourth, community-centered approach. These include community policy models that involve local stakeholders, as well as alternatives to formal prosecution for minor offenders, aligning with restorative justice and reducing unnecessary system entry. And finally, integration with probation and parole system. Early stage information, including form arrest, should inform reform supervision and reintegration strategies. When these elements are embraced, the impact is significant, reducing wrongful incarceration, strengthening public trust, and creating more connected system, a continuum of justice from arrest through probation and parole and into reintegration. Now let us turn to healing hearts. Many individuals under supervision carry deep histories of trauma, poverty, and marginalization. If we ignore them, we miss the chance to change the life. Healing hearts means integrating mental health and substance use treatment into probation and parole system, and recognizing that relapse is a part of recovery. It means supporting families because when we help children and partners, we break cycles of harm. And it means creating peer mentorship program when those who have walked the path of reintegration can guide others. Healing is not a soft skill. It is a hard necessity. Parole officers should be trained in compassionate supervision. Finally, we come to civil society. Too often, safety is equated with exclusion, locking people away behind high walls. But true safety comes from inclusion when individuals are given second chance. Recidivism decreases, families grow stronger, and communities become healthier. Community corrections must be recognized as a pillar of public safety. That means rewarding progress, not just punishing setbacks, investing in community-based services, and collaborating across justice, health, housing, and education sectors. I want to emphasize this point. Safety is not built by walls. It is built by bridge of opportunity, of compassion, and of inclusion. This is the vision we must carry forward. Friends, colleagues, and partners, our task is clear. We must commit to a vision of justice that is smart, compassionate, and effective. By getting smart on justice, healing hearts, and building safer societies, we can transform community correction into a system that not only supervises but truly supports. As we reflect on this shared vision, we also remind of an important reality in Indonesia. The correctional system continues to evolve with a growing numbers of individuals transitioning into the community, highlighting the increasing importance of effective reintegration support. In this context, ensuring that individuals can access meaningful opportunities after release become more essential. This is where Second Chance Foundation contributes. We are an independent non-profit organization in Indonesia focused to support both adult juvenile offenders through education, skill development, and reintegration program. Our work focuses on strengthening skills, supporting reintegration with dignity, and fostering a more inclusive public perception. More importantly, we aim to connect systems, linking what happens inside correctional facilities with a real opportunity beyond release. Because the second chance is not just about being released, it is about having a real opportunity to move forward. At Second Chance Foundation, we believe that meaningful reintegration happens when systems are truly connected, when skills lead to real opportunities and individuals are supported toward a more sustainable future. We invite you to be part of this shared effort to help build pathways that connect people to opportunities, stability, and dignity. Because the smarter correctional system is not only more effective, it is more connected, more inclusive, and more humane. And when the integration is supported in this way, a second chance becomes a real opportunity. Yet, this is not something that one organization can be done. It requires all of us to take part in this building a system that is not only effective, but also fair and human. Because in the end, this is not only about system. It is about people. It is about dignity. And it is about the kind of society we choose to build. So, let me leave you with this question. If not us, then who? If not now, then when? Let us leave this Congress with renewed determination to make second chance not only exception, but the norm. Because when justice is marked, when hearts are healed, societies are safer, and everyone wins. Thank you.
I think that's the best ending of any session in this place. Okay, so thank you for all the speakers. Due to the time, I will shorten my transition. So I will open question to the floor. I will open one question for each topic. So anyone have a question for any for our speakers today? Okay. So, okay.
Actually, I have a question.
Sure.
For a friend from the Netherlands, Ukraine. My question is the transitioning or the support to veterans who are returning from those war areas and types of intervention. I know the research that you are undertaking, but the types of intervention that is being undertaken. I want to ask whether or not are those being provided as a separate entity, tailored, targeted to those individuals? Are they being provided as part of the system that serves everybody? The reason why I ask the question is because I think I was in the US then, I was still in the US then, but when veterans were coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, we've seen high rates of criminal behavior, homicides even, that they're experiencing because of the trauma that they're experiencing abroad. There was an effort started at a time where it really became a whole system of specialized services, specialized support. So we had veteran courts, we had all coming home program, and so on. But those were carved out specific for veterans, only veterans. Judges presiding over those courts, the veterans only would come to those courts and so on. The mental health services are carved out just for veterans. We receive the markets and psychological services, we receive high rates of suicide. So I was curious how that worked with the program in Ukraine. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your questions. Your question is really very important. Very right things that we should to understood that we should say about work environment system, not only about probation services. In Ukraine now it's also a big discussion. We have special card and special prosecutor for veterans, for soldiers, for officers, for other persons that involved in special troops or another members of this big game, like the war, And there are different arguments. Somebody says that we should have it because it's really specific items, and general cards not usually don't understood the specific things. As far as I can say about prosecutor system. But on the other hand, some people argue that it will turn us in wrong way because before in Soviet Union we have special prosecutor for army, special cards for army, and it could turn us in maybe wrong way. Maybe it depends how we will use this. So that's why Ukraine going this way according to the recommendation of our European Union partners and other actors in this process. This is one chapter. Another one, of course, the main thing for us, like for Ukrainians, we should help people, yeah? We should to make them, how to say, open the door, come back to the society, and they should be sure that we understand them and really ready and want to help them. So, and our works now on the probation program, and Valentin Kim, head of this program, first make psychology solutions, and we try now to make in first science work, after to make recommendation to the authorities. Maybe I think it will be government program work with veterans. It will be, it's like our aim, because now at this time we don't have yet like a government program, but we have some special programs that works inside criminal justice system. But we are on the way. It's not the start, but it's not the finish, And the situation in development is really quite quick changing. So, and I wanted Hans also give some answer on this question and also
So one of the things that you see, there's a special ministry for veterans in Ukraine that has been established. We have within our project a wider discussion also with some other organizations in the Netherlands, discussions about whether there should be an international tribunal that prosecutes the international crimes that are being committed. At the moment, as Roman said, there is no special court for veterans or for military service. We do see trainings taking place in relation to how to deal with international crimes that are being committed for regional courts as well. When it comes to specifically working with veterans, we are not creating or looking to create, and also as we understand, Ukrainian probation system does not want to create a separate system for veterans, but more train the probation workers to be able to deal with veterans in their day-to-day work, because unfortunately there will be a lot of veterans in different elements. And you pointed quite well out. We've also learned about cases where a veteran is involved in a murder case, also a lot of veterans in relation to very simple cases, but where the context of being a veteran plays an essential role. One example that was given, and I think always amplifies it, is a veteran who got used to using drugs at the front line or while being away because of being able to deal with the trauma, starts dealing that amongst his fellow veterans because he feels he's helping them, dealing with the situation and dealing with the trauma. So he sees himself not as a criminal, but rather as a support system. And it's important that this kind of understanding is within the whole probation system, but also in the whole justice system, of how the veteran sees themselves, but also how to deal with them. So we're not looking into a separate system in that sense. We're seeing what can we do best to support our Ukrainian colleagues. And also we are looking, for instance, at what can we learn from countries like Bosnia and Herzegovina, Croatia. In Croatia, they have a probation system. They're still dealing with veterans from the war in the 90s to this day. Those are not a lot of cases, but they still have to deal with them. So a separate system there is not possible because it's too small a group. But you do need to have that understanding to deal with it. So we're taking also in a lot of other insights, and some of our colleagues are also looking at the American approach to it and seeing what we can learn from that. And part of the discussions in our working group will be about what can we learn from all these different cases to make a system that fits best to the needs of the Ukrainian system. Vivian, anything to add?
Thank you. So, in Ukraine, there are two systems handling the veterans. And that is the state system and the non-governmental organizations. And for the society. The social or NGO organizations are now setting up rehabilitation centers for the veterans. We use the best solutions and the best approaches to help veterans heal and reintegrate. And our presence here is an attestation to that the whole society is pulling weight and trying to help the veterans. In a way, the state institutions are catching up with the civil society organizations in the way of supporting veterans. And therefore, as part of our interventions, we'll be training probation officers in the best ways to deal with the veterans. The state institutions are looking widely for the experience available, and American experience is scrutinized carefully. We've discovered that there are at least 600 initiatives in the United States on different ways of supporting the veterans. The added challenge is that we are re-engineering a plane in flight. We have to develop these solutions of handling the veterans as the war continues, as the veterans continue to fight and return home. One of the key challenges we're facing is the reintegration challenges the veterans face as they return to society. Based on the research we had conducted, we could see that only 25% of the veterans join some initiatives like the peer-to-peer veteran initiatives. The rest remain decide to stay out. We are attributing this to the severity of the war and the gravity of the trauma that the veterans had sustained. Thank you. Thank you for the questions so much. Thank you for the insights. I hope we've responded to your question.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you so much for your answer. That's very nice. So I will open one question for another topic. So to Madam Evy, anyone have a question for the second speaker topic? Okay, maybe. So to give the Madam Evy to answer the question, I will give her the question. I really been curious. So, Madam, I'm sorry. To what extent can community-based organizations such as maybe I can say transform state-led correctional approach in promoting sustainable rehabilitation? I really want, please.
Thank you, Jackie.
Okay.
So, as you may know, the Secretary Foundations has been collaborating with DGC correction over the past decade. During the time, partnership has resulted in meaningful changes at correctional facility and the community. So more needs to be done. I think we like to see more collaboration, of course, in between private sectors, civil societies, and also the government, of course, for a foster sustainable reintegration. However, we must also structure 360 degrees outreach among all sectors and not only a slice of process that we see. Okay. And as a foundation, we are consistently would like to serve and facilitate to see someone's change in their life in the future after, especially after the post release. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. So I believe you might be have another question, but due to the time issues, I will wrap this Q&A session. So thank you so much for your time, for your presentation, for the speakers. I have two information for all of you that after this we will have WCPP closure in Nusantara Room. Yeah, in this place. At 2:30, and please ensure you don't miss it because we have special performance for you guys. And if you are the speaker at the first day, we have a certificate for all of you, and you can have it at registration section. And so I think that's it. We truly appreciate your participation. Feel free to continue the discussion and enjoy Bali. Thank you and enjoy the rest of our meeting. Thank you so much. Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Before we end the session, we have a soft gift for our speakers. And okay. And after that, as Indonesian, we always do the photo session after every conference. So please have. Okay. Okay, we will do the group photos for the speakers. Please. The first phase, it's just all of you, and the second phase will. Okay. I think it's done. Thank you so much. We will have the picture together with all of the participants. May okay. Okay, let's have the picture together. For all. Sorry. I think everyone had the discussion. I'm sorry. Okay, let's have a picture together with all the participants and the speakers. Okay, you can go in front of the stage. All the participants. What is it? Okay. Okay, aman mas.
Ya, kalau semua orang ngira saya sama Prilia tuh adik kakak. Sama-sama dari Malang soalnya. Enggak sih sebenarnya. Dia murid saya.
Okay, let's start the photo. 1, 2. Thank you so much.
Kita mau ada kerjaan ini, Bro. Kita harus mempopulerkan psikologi dan psikiatri di kalangan orang hukum. Ini memang juga sudah populer kan. Mana? Oh. Udah, harusnya. Kamu itu masih mau nge-live ya?
Closing. Yeah, I'm gonna go to the closing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'll
Yes. Okay.
Bu izin
Jadi mau di end aja live-nya.